welcome everyone to Utah Valley University. And if I can, as a point of personal privilege here, this is a remarkable time of transition in the state of higher education here in Utah. Just this week, we've had the announcement from my good friend and colleague Chuck White about his plans and imminent departure for other adventures and opportunities. And we've seen the elevation of friend and colleague Ruth Watkins as the new president of the UVU, and we've known of Dave's plan for a while. And so on behalf of Utah Valley University, if nothing else, a round of applause for Chuck, Ruth, and Dave and their service to them. In the spirit of the transition, I'm also not long for this institution, and some might think that that would betoken in a setting like this, the last time I'll be hosting the Board of Regents, time for a standard sort of 2.5-hour swan song. I'm not going to do that. This is not the beginning of a long goodbye tour. We have a limited amount of time today, 30 minutes. We've been asked to do some things to report on initiatives of mental health and completion, and so that's really the spirit of this. I'm qualifying that because we do have cameras in the audience today. This is typically when I do give a longer, broader, a more robust, full State of the University speech for campus. We're going to save that, if you will, for more towards the end of the semester as I do wrap up and say goodbye to campus. So just so people know what we're going to try to do and what we're not going to try to do here in the next few minutes. I'd like to begin with a wonderful little episode I had recently at one of our local elementary schools. Terrific initiative by our partners at United Way dealing with mental health and full physical well-being for our students starting at the elementary level and involving the universities in that. And with Bill Holterstrom and others, went over to Rock Canyon Elementary, had a wonderful lunch, and spent this delightful time with these third graders who were charming and engaging, and we had this wonderful conversation, and in a way that I was just totally bowled over with. This young lady that I'm speaking to, as she walked off, said, "Go werewolves." So I did give that some thought, what it would mean to change the mascot, and there's more rationale for that when you think about that image and Coach Pope. So I'm not announcing anything here, but it's all under advisement. I want to be very focused today on talking about student success. We talk about student success all the time. This is the emblem, if you will, of our core themes. We talk a lot about being serious, engaged, and inclusive, but those things are supplementary. Those things speak to what I call the core of the core, and that is our commitment to student success. And we just had our Northwest accreditors here. We have yet to receive our final report, but I can say here publicly we're quite confident that what was in the draft report will still be true in the final report, that their number one recommendation was that the evaluators came and recognized this sweeping commitment to a culture and a focus on student success. They said they saw it everywhere, in every division, at every level. I couldn't be more gratified by that because that is our aim, to say that's what this institution is all about, helping students have the best possible educational experience they have for students at every level and from every walk of life. So in the spirit of that, we have been very active on the mental health front. I appreciate the Regent's leadership on this issue. We've been asked to report back. These are some a little more text-heavy slides than I tend to do, but we've been asked to be meaty today. So I do want to give you the meat of some things that we're doing on this and also on completion. So one of the things that's unique about UVU is the way we've got a fully integrated healthcare approach. So we've got medical, therapy, psychiatric crisis assessment. They all work in integrated concert with each other. We have a seamless referral system from one service to the other. We've got an integrated electronic format for doing that. I think it's a unique leading edge approach here in the state. You can see the snapshot of the level of commitment we've got to this in terms of the number of mental health therapists, 12, a psychiatric nurse, 8 therapy groups, 2 full-time equivalents in our crisis center. We've added 12 since 2011. So we've been at work at this. This is important to us moving forward. And we've gotten much more efficient in our intake process, serving more students and offering increased hours. Just to give you a little bit more, even more meat on those bones. So we've added a director of assessment and an intern program. This has helped us reduce waiting times from 6 months to less than 1 month. We're completing 5 times the tests than before the intern program. We added a crisis unit 3 years ago that has no wait times. And you can see what we've done on increasing the hours there. We've got group therapy. This has helped reduce the pressure on individual therapy, and there's no wait time on that. Psychiatric service has increased from 12 hours to 40 hours a week, and it has less than a 1-week wait time. And in terms of outreach and training, 4 years ago, almost non-existent. And now we train over 2,000 individuals, employees and students per year, and you can see the figures for students and faculty, and what we're doing now just in fall alone, 1,100 students on mental health outreach and a focus on suicide prevention with our faculty. So we believe it, we've been on it, we're going to stick with it, we're going to improve even beyond this, again with the help and coordination of Regent leadership on this. The other thing we've been asked to talk about is student success and completion. Again, sort of a meaty slide and smaller font than I like to do, but it helps you see that dating back to 2006, this has been something we've been attending to and concerned about. Started with initiating a student success and retention committee in 2006, and every year since then, major initiatives focused on this idea of helping retention, helping completion, moving a student through all the way to graduation. And you can see everything from early alert programs to retention mentors, a freshman reading program, a UVU commit program, an orientation, mandatory orientation, completion grants, a completion plan, a new scheduler program, a new gateway course redesign. I'll talk in a minute about math and some other things. So we're at this every single year, layering more and more into our efforts to make sure that we draw them in and we push them through to a completion. So in terms of how we've done on that, in terms of a traditional IPEDS measure, since 2010, when we really got started in earnest in this administration, we've seen a 79% increase in our graduation rate. The raw numbers of our completion have increased 37%. This the last year that we have the hard numbers for is over 5,000 graduates. Having said all that, and while we think that's impressive, it's not our best measure. I think as this group knows, but I'll take time to explain it again, traditional IPEDS measure is not a good measure for the mission of this institution. It only measures first-time, full-time, bachelor's degree seeking students. So even right now, this is effectively measuring about 13% of our student body when it's looked at on that. Because we've decided to stay inclusive, we've embraced this open admissions mission, we've retained a community college role within a university, we have a very different mission than just catering to students that are first-time, full-time bachelor's degree seeking students. We think a better measure is now, and IPEDS is starting to recognize this with their outcomes measures, is something that looks at something on an 8-year lag. Many of our students are older, they work part-time, they take more time. It's not that they're dilly-dallying or not being really hard-working. It's the realities of life, and it takes them longer. If you give us 8 years to measure it, if you allow us to consider transfers, and we still have legacy programs that were designed to be transfer programs, to send them on to our research school complement here in the state, and if you allow us to count associates and certificates, which is part of the community college mission, which we have, then dating back to 2007, when that first committee was instituted, we had a 71% completion rate. And in just a year's time, that climbed to 79%. And that's before most of all of those other things I showed you on that list went into effect. So we think we're doing extremely well on this. If you look at the data the way the data should be looked at, and we're going to see even more progress moving forward in the years ahead as these things that we've instituted take years to have show the ramifications of. And we're just on the cusp of seeing those things take effect. I want to do just a quick deep dive on 2 or 3 of the things that we think have been some of the most effective things that we've done. Again, it's kind of sticking with the meat and the substance of what we're about in terms of completion. So math preparedness, this has been a big stumbling block at our institution and across the state. One of the things we did is we got with our K-16 Alliance, we said, let's stop fighting. Let's stop pointing the finger and say, well, it's public ed's fault or it's higher ed's fault. Let's just work together on this issue. And one of the first things we found is that, yes, there are some things in higher ed we could do better. And that is that we had a cumbersome entry process that insisted on a lot of courses to get people math ready. We've streamlined all of that. So we've taken what was a 4-semester pathway for students who were not arithmetic ready. It's now a 2-semester pathway. For students who weren't algebra ready, it's gone from a 2-semester sequence to a 1-semester. We've taken Math 990, 1010, and 1030, collapsed it into Math 1035. It's basically sort of non-calculus algebra in a relevant context, or financial literacy, the kind of math, frankly, that most of our students are going to use the rest of their life, and we've collapsed that into one course. We've also introduced and had phenomenal success with ALEKS because we found that while there are things that our public ed counterparts are working on, they're actually doing a pretty good job, but because of culture and practice, our students just get too far away from math. It's not that they haven't been prepared in high school, they just needed a little reboot here and there. So ALEKS is a 30-question assessment process about mathematical understanding. It's very sophisticated. In just those 30 questions, it can test on, I think, over 130 different concepts, place you exactly into the areas where you need to reboot, and then it leads you through the remediation in a kind of give and take. And so this develops the specific remediation work they need. Self-guided course, Math 100R. Average length is 30 days. 60 to 80% of folks who take, our students who take that jump a full course level by going through that. And after Math 100R, 70% are GE ready. So again, we won't see the full implications of this for completion for some time, but it's already having an immediate impact on retention and just student excitement and enthusiasm instead of some of the demoralization that has come with math in the past. We've also been, as you know, very focused on being an inclusive institution. It's one of our core themes, one of the supplements and drivers of student success. We're very proud of the fact that 38% of our students are first-generation students. And that's not happened by accident. It's not just a natural demographic. We've been very proactive in reaching out with our I Am First campaign. Active marketing, first-generation mentors, designated events, learning lunches, a leadership program, student clubs. So that's having an impact. We've had a major focus on multicultural initiatives. As a result, our students of color have increased since we started this initiative when I arrived in 2009 from 8.9% to 18.1%, 110% increase in students of color. Part of the key here, frankly, has been hiring faculty of color, and that's been intentional and programmatic on our part. And believe it or not, right here in Orem, Utah, we're winning national awards for our work on inclusion. We won the 2017 Rose Duhan Sells Award for the Program of the Year from the National Association of Multicultural Education, and we're the 2017 National Role Model Award for an institution committed to diversity by minority access. I think these are remarkable awards for this community in terms of our commitment and what we're doing moving forward. And then another area is just the age of our students and their development. So a lot of our students have to work. As a result, they take a little more time, they get older, life happens. Nearly 30% of our students are over 25. So One of the implications of this also is that we also have this large cohort in our state of some college and no degree. We're the second highest of that in the nation. So we began an initiative 18 months ago where we identified 3,200 students, contacted them by email and by phone. These are students who, within the last 7 years, have 90 credits or more, but still no degree. So we called them, readmitted them, waived fees, got them with advisors that got them into the quickest path to finish, if you will. And as a result, in those 18 months, we've graduated 200 additional students. We think the combination of this work and being flexible and adjustable for part-time students and older students has made us the #2 best college for adult learners, according to this wonderful and I think more robust and sophisticated look at best colleges done by Washington Monthly. And we're not at all ashamed to say that we are #2 behind #1, our friends at Weber State. So congratulations, Chuck, to you on that. Third thing, our dual mission. This is part of our effort to help more people get into college and complete college. And it's this idea of combining a community college and a teaching university. And so you can see our continuing commitment to associate programs and certificates, open admissions, active outreach, even as we build out this really dynamic teaching university with master's degrees and rigor and expectation and PhD-trained faculty. And this is all integrated. And it starts as early as high school with concurrent enrollment, with things laddering in to certificates of proficiency, to associate's degree, to bachelor's degrees that now have people teed up for master's degrees. Here's a track in IT that starts with a certificate of proficiency, that ladders into a certificate of completion, that ladders into an applied science, and then a Bachelor of Science. All of those credits counting, no worry about transfer, what transfers, what doesn't, no changing locations, no changing advisors, no changing anything, just moving through in step function fashion. It's been a very powerful tool. These are the programs that we have stackable degrees for like that, and this is a big part of this phenomenon. So this is the change in our class level from 2008 to 2017. And what it shows you is that we're growing in every class, and you would expect that at some level. We live in a fast-growing part of the state. But if it were just the demographics, you'd expect that biggest bump to be in the freshman class. But our biggest bump actually is coming in our junior and senior class. What that means is that by virtue of these retention efforts, the completion efforts, by these efforts to ladder students on in, to draw students in who may think all they can do is a certificate or all they can do is an associate degree, and find out, hey, I can do this at a university and I'm competing and I love it and I'm inspired and I want to go on now and get a bachelor's degree. We're starting to really grow at the junior and senior ranks, which again will start translating into even more robust completion and graduation rates. So, this is, I think, as you know, starting to get quite a bit of international attention and national attention. And just two recent things, an article in Public Purpose, the magazine for the American Association of State Colleges and Universities, and just this week, Inside Higher Ed, a terrific focus piece on this dual mission model and what we're doing. I love this quote from Joe Garcia. It's rare that faculty members, administrators, and state lawmakers agree on the mission for a new beast like UVU, said Joe Garcia, president of the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education and a Democratic former lieutenant governor of Colorado. We praise the model. This is the next step in the evolution. This results speak for themselves. They've been able to do both. So maybe with Joe Garcia's, we do go back to the werewolf as the new beast in education. With that, I want to shift now. We don't have much time, but I thought for this setting, if there was one thing I could say about the state of the university, is just an update on our determination to be community responsive. That in our effort to promote student success, that we need to listen to the community as those who hire our students, who involve our students in the community, who raise our students, if you will. What are the needs that you're facing? And we've made this huge effort to be responsive to the business community with the Business Resource Center. You can see the number. This has become the kind of ultimate one-stop shop in our valley for those who are interested in business, with all of those different entities from USTAR, EDC Utah, Manufacturing Extension Partnership, all located right there moving forward. We've responded with specific requests for master's degree. This is based on the data of our valley, the request of leaders, and they're not the typical master's degrees that you would think about in the evolution of a university. Cybersecurity, public service. Those have been very tailored and specific responses. Engineering. We just heard a comment this morning in our gathering with the regents and the trustees from Jack Sunderledge, who's one of our trustees, talking about a recent Silicon Slopes conference. Last year they had the first one, 5,000 people there. They hope they might exceed that a little bit, maybe get to 10,000. They had 14,000 people show up this year. This is what's happening in our community. These are areas where we've got to educate, we've got to produce people with the degrees, and we're going to do this in a robust and aggressive, effective way moving forward. This is just one example of that. Here are all of the CTE programs. It's not just engineers that we need support folks in many different areas. All of these have advisory boards. The entrepreneurial community is feeding into the Silicon Slopes atmosphere, the dynamism of this place. We want to bring that onto our campus. Just this week, we announced 3 new venture funds, all with a different focus and approach for kind of where the students might be in their entrepreneurial stage. This is nearly $200,000 of donated monies that will go into these seed operations to let students start to take their ideas and turn them into businesses and get that real-world experience. Wonderful new social media command center. Responsiveness to cybersecurity. We're the partner for the National Cybersecurity Alliance. Every organization on this planet is now concerned about cybersecurity. We've got our new master's degree. We're pioneering our efforts there. Our students are winning national awards in that critical area. And then finally, I'll just say as I wrap up here, I only have what I have here, and there's so much more on this campus than what we do for business. There are so many other issues, there's so many other needs. One example, frankly, this came from talking in the business community as we'd talk about, economic development and competitiveness and workforce development. And at the end, a CEO would say, I've got this child with autism. What are you doing about autism? We just started to hear that over and over again. So we went to work on that. So this year, we cut the ribbon on the Melissa Nelson Center for Autism. We're pleased this was entirely paid for by privately raised funds. We did a value engineering program on it, and it still has won a statewide architectural award. But more importantly, what happens is inside of it, demonstration classrooms to help educators know how to teach and support the young in those situations, hosting statewide initiatives, a pathway, a passages program to help those students who kind of move out of K through 12 where there's so much support for autism and then virtually nothing afterwards, and new programming, a resource library for parents and leaders and others. Many more things that will come out of that. But again, that's just an example of we listened, we've responded, we're moving forward. And then finally, I'll say, to tee you up for lunch, which is where you go next, this will be over in our Mark and Debbie Bingham Roots of Knowledge Gallery. A university is, at the end of the day, something much, much more than just an arm of workforce development, or even just being something responsive to the community. It's about learning for the sake of learning. It's about exposing your students and the community to great art, great literature, philosophy, music, an appreciation of the past, technology, government. There is so much there going on that we all need to be more familiar with and more curious about and more informed by. And that was what inspired the building of the Roots of Knowledge windows, this tribute, this paean, if you will, to the best human advances in all of those disciplines that I mentioned. So we're going to host you at lunch over there. We'll have our docents there who can answer many of your questions about what this means and that. I'm still discovering every time I visit it dozens of new things that I didn't see or know or understand. But as I wrap up here, let me just mention one particular panel. By the way, I will note it was noted the People's Choice Award for the Code Awards. This is the National Award for Public Art, and we were very honored by that accomplishment. But this is one of my favorite panels. This won't come as a surprise to anyone, knowing my background and training and scholarly interests as a student of the American founding. I worked with Tom Holdman on this and several of the panes, and what you start to see is the level of detail and both the historical informedness of it, but also some of the playfulness of it. So it's not all perfectly historically accurate, and yet it brings so many things to bear that might be interested. So that's the kind of the traditional picture of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, but lots of little touches like Jefferson clutching the architectural plans to Monticello, one of the great architectural designs in America. John Adams holding his letter to Abigail Adams, this famous correspondence between these towering male-female partnership. Benjamin Franklin holding the Pennsylvania Gazette and having his experimental kite down by his side. So anyway, they're just, in this frame alone, there are hundreds of things going on like that to stir the curiosity, get students interested. So here's one, again, not historically accurate, but historically interesting. If you look at behind, just over Ben Franklin's shoulder there's a chair. Now, that's not the chair that Franklin was sitting in when he signed the Declaration. It is an image of the chair that George Washington was sitting in at the end of the Constitutional Convention. And the famous story here is that at the end of the convention, after all of the back and forth and the fighting and the difficulty and the compromise, Ben Franklin, the sort of the seasoned statesman of the group, says, "General Washington, I've been sitting here this entire summer watching you preside over this convention. And over your shoulder, I see on the chair this half sun. And I've been trying to decide this whole summer, is this a setting sun or is this a rising sun?" And he said, "I haven't been entirely sure until today. Until now that we have this agreement of this remarkable document, already having some sense about what a significant thing they'd have achieved. And now," he says, in effect, "I'm sure it's the symbol of a rising sun, which is a symbol in turn of a rising republic and what this country will become." Now, I share that with you in perhaps my one moment of something of a farewell to regents and friends here, to say there are a lot of reasons to be pessimistic about higher education today, and we hear a lot about it, don't we? We hear it from a lot of quarters. If I could leave one message with the regents, with my faculty and staff and fellow administrators, is certainly for UVU, if not higher education in general, I see a rising sun. It's never been more exciting to be in higher education at UVU than right now. And I'm not speaking about right now, just today, but right now as we move into the future. Our very best days are ahead of us. We are so grateful at this institution for the support of the state. I'm so personally grateful for my colleagues who work day and night to make this institution what it is. I look forward to spending a few more months with you, making this place the very best it can be, knowing that it's going to accomplish even greater things in the years ahead with everyone's help in this room. So thank you very much.